Well, welcome. Short but sweet. I guess traffic is immense today, so really dragging in here a little while. Welcome, John. John's a new guy here. John, you don't have to stand up. There's no room, but tell everybody who you are.
I'm John Griffin. I'm a native Nashvilleian. Actually lived in the Brentwood area all my life. I'm an agent with Pilferton Realty. I also have an outdoor advertising company. So, Brandon Patrick.
Yeah, he's stuck on the interstate.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
We need to learn the back road.
That's what everybody. That's what everybody says.
And I guess I'll throw this in too. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I was a broker on building too. So I do have.
You still have your license?
I have my real estate license. I'm getting my contractor license back as we speak.
Okay. Make sure you let us know.
Yeah, I built FHA, THDA, did remodeling, built about 400 homes in Nashville. 1989, I was the 18th most active home builder in Davidson County. But interest rates hit 20% back those days.
Yeah.
Remember? So it's like, man, I got the cheese. Let me out of the trap.
Well, we're going to have a meeting coming up with a guy down in Florida who patented a pre-formed concrete wall system, and we might start playing around with that.
Yeah, I've built panel on panel before.
Yeah, I mean this is high R factor, easy Lego block kind of construction to support a concrete wall.
Cool.
So we'll make sure we get a hold of you for that meeting. But you're the only one's new here, but I think green is, Steve and I started this to get education that so many people don't know about. 1031 exchange, for example, you can save thousands and thousands. I mean, it's silly not to do it. Self-directed IRAs, credit repair, bunch of different things. I did some videos today for low, no money down real estate. So many people say, I don't buy real estate because I don't have any money. I mean, have you had money when you bought your real estate? No.
It was all borrowed.
Yeah, it was all borrowed. I mean, people think that you have to have money. I mean, Les buys more property than everybody around here, and he has no money. So we do that, plus we do a networking where we get groups, and we're starting groups around the country. Right now we got one in Florida, Fort Myers, Florida, and hopefully we're working on Tampa, where St. Pete, where Dave is right now. He's on the screen. And why don't you sit over here, John, because you'll see the screen better.
Oh, that's great. That's
I hate to see that one too, but
see either one.
But
I'm okay.
You know, and Jersey, other places in Florida, we got a group of people getting ready to start. So that's what Green does, because we don't feel like people networking around here. I mean, what happens when you can't do it anymore because it's so crowded? You know, let's go somewhere else. And we don't have to go to Florida to buy real estate. We can go to Columbia or out east a little bit. So we're even starting groups in the peripheral around Nashville, of course, peripheral around all these places. So that's what we do basically here. All the education is free here, but we have plenty more on our website. But anyway, I bought a lot of real estate, no money down back in the day, and I was hit the perfect time down in Fort Myers and sold at the perfect time and got a pocket full of 1031 exchanges from Dave. And I brought my winnings up here. Matter of fact, gave them to Steve, and I bought another 100 or so houses up this way. And I firmly believe in 1031 exchanges. It's just an unbelievable way to make money. Matter of fact, we have one working right now with Dave. And I don't want to give the price, but we're going to save $40,000, $50,000 in taxes. Yeah. Period. So anyway, I'm going to put Dave up on the screen, or Marcus will. And right now it's Dave Foster from St. Pete. Welcome, Dave.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Dave.
And it sounds like you guys are having Florida traffic. We sent it up to you last month. April, it peaks down here. You can have the traffic the rest of the summer. How's that sound?
Yeah, thanks.
Well, so like Mark said, I deal with a strange, quiet, not well-known product called the 1031 Tax Deferred Exchange. And for any of you who have ever dealt with the IRS, you know a couple of things. Number one, it's not your favorite relationship in the world. But number two, the time to worry about the government is when they come to you and tell you they're here to help. The best part of the government are the things that they don't tell you. The secrets that are available to you if you know about them, if you're attorneyed up well, or if you've got great accountants. But the IRS is certainly not going to advertise them because that's money out of their pocket. And the 1031 exchange is one of those things. Although there's been an average for the last 20 years of between 200 and 500,000 exchanges every year, it still is not really filtered down to the rank and file of the investors for a couple of reasons. Number one, because the IRS doesn't market them. Number two, because everybody in the past has thought that it was something that took attorneys and accountants to make happen. And number three, because of the dark days. And most of you guys in that room probably remember the dark days, 2008, 2009, where we were all kind of shaking the dust off and figuring out what was next. During that time, the reporting of 1031 tax exchanges went from 500,000 in 2005 to 100,000 in 2008. So basically, whatever the animal was disappeared and nobody knew about it. But now they're starting to come back. People are starting to see them, hear about them, and wonder what they are. And that's what I'm here for tonight, to reintroduce you to one of the most powerful strategies that you're going to have in your real estate portfolio. The 1031 exchange is nothing more than standing for the part of the code, Section 1031. And what the 1031 exchange does, here's an exact wording from the code. Pursuant to an agreement, the taxpayer is going to transfer property, then they're going to receive property, and we're talking about investment property. Now, again, like everything else with the IRS, here's two sentences of statute that somehow over the last 30 years has become 8,000 pages of case law. But here's the gist of it all, and then we're going to talk through how you can use these effectively. That when you use a 1031 exchange, you can sell business or investment real estate that has a profit or that has been significantly depreciated. And by using the process correctly, you then buy new investment real estate. And in doing so, you do not have to pay tax on the profit. Now, if that's $100,000 in profit and you're in Tennessee, that could very easily, with depreciation and everything, come to 25 to 30% of your income. And instead, the 1031 exchange allows you to take that $20,000 to $30,000 and use that to buy more real estate. Now, you all just heard Mark talk about the power that's there in borrowing money for real estate. So what really does $20,000 or $30,000 mean? It doesn't mean a tiny shack that's falling down, does it? It means it's the leverage to take that $20,000 or $30,000 and buy a much more significant piece of real estate using borrowed funds. When you start to think about that, all of a sudden you can start to see just how quickly you can ratchet up your portfolio using the government's money. The best way to think about this is just like your IRA or 401k. Now, I've got a little screen and I'm looking at you, so this will be kind of fun, but how many of you have a retirement account of some sort.
One, two, maybe three.
Nobody else is talking. They got too much attention. The 1031 exchange does exactly the same thing for you outside your retirement account. The power of an IRA is using the dollars tax deferred. The power of the 1031 exchange is using the income tax that you normally would have paid and getting to defer that into your next property. So why would an investor want to use this thing? Let's compare the cases. We're going to take two investors that start with the exact same property. They're going to do the exact same things in the exact same timing. They're going to make the exact same money. There's one difference. If one investor A, is going to do 1031 exchanges, investor B is going to pay the tax as he goes and be a good little citizen. So if after a period of time on their first property, there was $100,000 in gain, look at our results. Investor A is going to defer the tax. Now, they still owe it, but they get to use the money right now. Because of that, he's got an after-tax investment of $100,000. He could use that to buy a $500,000 piece of property. Investor B is going to pay the tax. At 20%, he's going to pay $20,000 in tax. That still isn't bad. It leaves him with $80,000. But if he's going to leverage that, he can only purchase a $400,000 piece of property. You guys tracking with me? Make sense?
Yeah.
So they buy this property, and in year 5, they're going to sell it. Again, investor A is going to defer the tax. They now have $138,000. He's going to buy new property.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We've lost your vocals. I can't hear you.
We can hear him.
I'm right here.
Okay, you just came back. Go ahead. Pick it up again. Start
Okay.
on the beginning of this slide.
Got it. Sorry about that, guys. So look at year 5. Investor A doesn't pay tax. He can now buy almost $700,000 worth of real estate. Investor B pays tax. Now, he doesn't owe any tax, but he can only buy about $450,000. So they each do that. They make their move. And now it's year 10. They do that again. The rate of appreciation that we used to calculate this was 5%. It's irrelevant. What's important to know is that it's exactly the same for each investor. The only difference is that one pays the tax now and one waits to let the tax accumulate. And they are going to use the tax in their new purchases. So after year 10, do you see investor A's got $1 million in real estate? Investor B isn't doing so bad, but it's almost half of that. Now let's skip ahead to year 20. If you don't have any bad luck in the middle, 20 years is a good long investing career. Sometimes it's not enough, and if you're like me, sometimes 20 years feels like it's going to be way too much. But at the end of 20 years, look at the magic that has happened. Investor A still owes $106,000 in tax. They've never paid tax at all. But investor A controls $3.5 million in real estate. Now, investor B doesn't owe a penny in tax. They paid their $106,000. But look at what that deferred tax was able to get investor A. Investor B is only able to control $800,000 in real estate because they paid the tax when it was due and investor A did 1031 exchanges. Now, if you want to see the real significance of this, think about what you could get as a rate of return on real estate that you own. Because I'm really bad at math, I'm just going to say it's 10%. Most of you could maybe do better than that, or maybe a little bit less. But if I can make 10% on my real estate assets, then at investor A, I'm going to make $360,000 a year. Investor B is going to make $80,000 a year. If I'm investor A, I make more in 1 year to pay the entire tax that I've deferred over the entirety of my real estate career. And at the end of the day, I still own my real estate. That's the power of the 1031 exchange. Deferred interest that gets to compound and helps you to purchase new real estate. Make sense? Who believes the devil's in the details?
Dave, I'm not a detail guy, but I believe it.
It's true, it's true. There are 6 requirements that all have to be met in order to do a 1031 exchange. You cannot meet 4 of them and come close on 2. And because it's dollars out of the government's pocket, who in here thinks that the government's going to be gracious? Yeah, I thought so. So here's requirement number 1. This is only dealing with real estate that is held for investment. Now, by that I mean it's not your primary residence. It's not new construction that you built with the intent to sell. That's what the IRS calls inventory. It's not property that we would call fix and flips, where you buy it primarily to fix it and sell it. It's property that is your intent to hold for productive use in business, investment, or trade. Now, what the heck's the difference, Dave? The difference is the word intent. If you buy a piece of property intending to hold it, it qualifies for 1031. If you buy a piece of property intending to flip it, resell immediately, it does not qualify for 1031 treatment. Most conservative people will say that if you've owned it for a year, you're probably pretty good. But there's always reasons why a scenario might work for a shorter hold. Someone says, well, I bought this because I wanted to rehab it and rent it and hang on to it, and now I'm getting transferred, or a drug lord moved in next door, or whatever reason. I've got to sell this, but that was not my intent in the beginning. Then they can sell it and do a 1031 exchange. In other words, folks, accidents can happen. The problem comes if the same accident happens for you 8 or 9 times a year. So it's best to look at the property and say, why am I buying this? And as many times as you can, buy it with the intent to hold on to it. There's another group that I belong to that has a quaint little phrase. They call this strategy the BRRRR, as in the upper Northeast in winter. The BRRRR strategy. Buy, rehab, rent, or refinance, rent, and then repeat. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. When you do that, and then at the end, when you do that, was your intent to hold it? Absolutely. That property would qualify for 1031 treatment. So how many of you guys like the adrenaline of the fix and flip market? Who else doing flips?
Half the room, Dave.
Yeah, okay. The other half just has not caught the adrenaline rush yet. If you're a fix and flipper, it's as simple as this. Stop fixing and flipping. Buy, rehab, put a renter in, and then evaluate. Maybe it's a good property to hold on to. Maybe it's one you need to sell. Maybe it's one that's good to refinance. Either way, it doesn't slow your advance in the market down. But what it does do is it takes the property from what would be the realm of inventory that doesn't qualify for 1031, and it becomes investment property, which does qualify for 1031. Simple as that. But the rule of thumb is, to be 1031 property, it has to be property that's held for investment. The second rule, from the day that you close the sale of your property, you have 45 days to identify your potential replacement properties. That's calendar days. There's no exceptions, no extensions. You have 45 days. That can be a problem in a seller's market, can it? Now, coupled with that, I want to jump to 3 real quick, and we'll treat them together. But also, from the day that you close the sale of your property, you have 180 days to complete the entire process. Now, when you look at these two together, you can see real quick that the 180 is not such a big deal, but that 45 really can be. There's a couple things you could do to make this rule work better for you. Number one is understand that your 1031 exchange starts with the sale and it ends with the purchase. So your sale has to happen first. But it's perfectly fine to go into contract on your new property before your old property sells. So as soon as you feel really good about going into that your sale is going to happen, it's perfectly fine to get a contract on your new property and close them as closely together as you want, even within the 45 days. The second thing you could do is use contingencies. Now, people tell me, Dave, it's a seller's market. Sellers won't give me contingencies. I know, I get it. But guess what? In the 1031 exchange, you're a seller too. Pardon me. So it is perfectly fine for you to put a contingency with your buyer to slow up the closing of the sale until you can find your replacement property. So you see, we can make these two work together. Criteria number 4. You have to use the services of a qualified intermediary. Now, that's somebody like me that has to be in place at the closing of the sale. Excuse me. We document the sale. We work with all of your regular professionals. You use all of your regular professionals. We're just an additional part in the process that documents the sale, holds your calendars, and holds your proceeds in between the sale and the purchase. We're an unrelated third party. All we can do for you is the 1031 exchange. So everybody else you would normally use, realtor, title company, attorney, etc., you use them just as you always do. Okay? The 5th criteria is what we call the title requirements. When you're doing a 1031 exchange, whoever the taxpayer is for the old property has to be the taxpayer for the new property. If John Doe owns the old property, John Doe has to take title to the new property. Now, there's some quirks to this that we don't have time to get into tonight. But the most important thing to come out of this, though, is to understand that no matter who owns the property, whether it is an individual, a partnership, a trust, a corporation, a limited liability company, no matter who owns the real estate, that entity can do a 1031 exchange. So this is available for any business or individual entity. But whoever is the taxpayer for the old property has to be the taxpayer for the new property. The last requirement is really a two-part requirement. What do I have to reinvest? Think of it this way. If you want to defer all tax, you have to, first of all, purchase at least as much as your net sale. Now, your net sale is going to be defined as the contract price minus the normal costs of closing, commissions, title insurance, etc., that kind of thing. So if I sell a property for $200,000, for $220,000, and there's $20,000 of commissions, title insurance, and closing fees, then my net sale would be $200,000. The first part of the rule, to defer all tax, you would have to buy at least $200,000 in real estate. It doesn't have to be one property, could be more than one. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you got to buy at least that much to defer all tax. The second half of the rule is that you have to use all of the cash proceeds. So let's say there was a $100,000 mortgage on that property. Contract was $220,000, net sales price $200,000. The mortgage payoff of $100,000 leaves you with cash of $100,000. So the second half, your reinvestment requirements to defer all tax would be to purchase $200,000 and use all $100,000 in the next purchase or purchases. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Love it. Just making sure everybody's awake. And Mark obviously is right on top of it. Now, you can't take money out. You can buy less than what you sell. But the IRS says the first dollar out is $1 of profit first. So you say, Dave, I put $20,000 down when I bought this property. That's not taxable. I want to get that back. And my answer is, that's right. If you were not doing a 1031 exchange, that $20,000 would not be taxable. But because you're doing a 1031 exchange, the IRS is going to allow their tax dollars to go forward. They're expecting you to carry forward on what you've contributed. So any amount you want to take out, they're going to call that profit. You're going to argue with me and say, no way, that's my down payment. And I'm going to agree with you and ask you one question. You want to say that it's your original down payment. The IRS says that it's profit. Who has nuclear weapons, and who do you really think is going to win that argument? So that being said, the requirement to defer all tax, purchase at least as much as you sell, use all of your proceeds. If you take anybody out, It doesn't affect the rest of your exchange, but you'll pay tax on that amount. Now, let me give you a little tip on how to avoid that if you want money out. And that would be, using our example, go ahead and purchase a property for $200,000. Go ahead and use all $100,000 in the next purchase. And then, do I have a mortgage broker in the room?
No.
So I can tell mortgage broker jokes. Awesome. No, just kidding. Go to your mortgage broker the day after you complete your 1031 exchange and do a cash out refi. That's not. And so the end of the story is you completed a full 1031 exchange with no tax due. You still got the money that you wanted, do whatever you wanted to do with it. That money is not taxable. And if that property is a rental property, guess who's paying back that mortgage? Your tenant. So it's kind of like the win-win-win trifecta of all things. Don't take money out of the 1031, complete a 1031, and then simply refinance. And that's how you can keep from paying tax. Okay? So there's our 6 requirements. So let's do a review. Everybody speak. What kind of property is to be held for?
Investment.
You got it. How many days to identify my potentials?
45.
Voila. How many days do I have to complete the whole thing?
180.
What am I called? Be polite. The requirements that the taxpayer match of the old and the new are what we call the tidily requirement. And then to reinvest, you've got to purchase
Equal or more.
up. Exactly. You guys are awesome. You're all now officially 1031 experts. But if you got a couple more minutes, let's talk about how you actually use them. The first way would be to do what we would call validation exchange. Mark mentioned that he bought 5 or 6 or 7,000 properties. He's got to be getting tired. So what if he were to take several properties that are smaller, sell them using 1031 exchanges to buy a larger property that provides better cash flow, return on investment, or is more passive and takes less active management? Sell 4 $100,000 properties and buy one $400,000 property. Did I purchase at least as much as I sold? Absolutely. This is a typical strategy for our investors as they're starting to wind things down, because they usually like to get bigger assets that take less management, have a better return, are more passive in nature. You know, I suppose I could have made a joke about that. The whole idea of growing old to get bigger assets, some of that just comes naturally. Bada boom. Okay. The way that investors use 1031 when they're starting out and starting to grow is to diversify. Sell one investment and use the proceeds as down payments to buy 2. So the best example of this is, I know how to renovate a $100,000 house. I know the neighborhood I like to be in. I know what I can sell them for when I'm done. So I buy a $100,000 piece of property, I fix it up, I put renters in it, I take care of it. When it's time to sell, because it's a great piece of property, it's worth $200,000. Now, $200,000 properties, maybe I don't know those so well. Maybe I don't like the idea of owning a $200,000 piece of property, or maybe the return on investment from a rental point of view isn't that great on $200,000 pieces of property. So instead of selling one and buying one, I sell for $200,000 and I buy two $100,000 pieces of property. Then what am I going to do? Fix them up, rent them, evaluate. And when I sell those two, what am I going to buy? Two more each $100,000 pieces of property. Using my down payment, the net gain, and the government's tax dollars, because I'm 1031ing them. You start to see how your portfolio could grow so quickly doing this, that guess what's going to happen pretty quickly? You're going to decide, dang, I'm tired. How can I consolidate these? And then you're going to take several and move them into one. So the 1031 is perfect to manage the size of your portfolio. It's perfect to manage the geographical location of your portfolio, because you can go anywhere in the country you want. Mark said, what do we do when there's no more room here? We'll start buying in Memphis or Florida or Phoenix or wherever. Use the 1031 to sell where you're at. Go somewhere else. Ever feel like you might get tired of residential? Use the 1031 to buy commercial. So any type of investment, real estate, commercial, industrial, residential, raw land, can all be exchanged for any other type. So use the 1031 to change the type of asset, to change the geography of the asset, and to change the numbers of the asset. It's quite a bit of flexibility. And finally, use the 1031 exchange to provide for your retirement needs. Remember, Investor A had a lot of tax that he never paid. Guess what happens when Investor A dies? As long as he owns those properties, or as long as he 1031s, anytime he sells one, he will never pay the tax. So he gets to make that money all his life. And when he dies, the IRS gives you another nice little present. Well, they give it to your heirs. Your heirs inherit your property on the day you die, as if they paid market value on the day that you die. So you could have $3 million of real estate that had profit of $2.5 million in it that you had never paid tax on because you 1031'd it. When your heirs get that property from your estate, they get it as if they paid $3 million for it. That $2.5 million of profit goes away. I realize that although that's pretty powerful, some of you might be saying, but wait a minute, that's not a great way to go, because that gives the benefit to my heirs and not to me. And that's probably the second best way to use 1031s to your benefit. But it's still there. And it's really how a lot of the larger real estate families in America have passed on their wealth intergenerationally, is by using the 1031 exchange and then estate planning. But far better than that would be one of these two options. Either simply don't ever sell the property and just let the IRS let you make money off of the deferred tax. Or every once in a while, take one of those properties and convert it into your primary residence. Now, the rules of primary residence say that if you have lived in a property for 2 out of the previous 5 years, you as a married couple, you would get to take the first $500,000 in profit tax-free. And you could do that once every 2 years. Now, just by itself, that's a huge model to generate tax-free income all your life. You just have to have a flexible spouse. But if you tell him or her that you'll allow them to decide when the time to move is, and let them know that maybe the best time to sell is going to be as soon as it's time to renovate, let's sell instead. You can turn this into a tax-free gravy train the rest of your life. Here's how it works with 1031, though. Remember, 1031, sell an investment property, buy an investment property. But you do not have to leave it as investment forever. So periodically, you can exchange into a really, really nice investment property. And a year or 2 later, you decide to move into it. Moving into it does not trigger the tax. But once you've lived in it for 2 out of the previous 5 years, and because it was the product of a 1031 exchange, once you owned it for 5 years, you can again sell that. And again, because it was a 1031, you'll get to prorate part of that gain tax-free. So if you bought the property, rented it for 2 years, moved into it for 3 years, you could sell it at the end of that time, and you would get to take 3/5 of the profit tax-free. How's that for retirement? That becomes your model. My job in retirement, I go to the mailbox to get my Social Security check, and I move every couple years. And that's all it takes. That's what the 1031 can do for you. That is such a very rough snapshot of some of the things that are available. We go way to depth, but obviously we don't have time tonight. But are there any quick questions that someone might have?
Christina, can you turn the lights on?
Yeah, I've got some questions. Dave, can you hear me?
I got you.
Okay. It's been 10 years since I did my continuing education. But I remember, gosh, I think I took this class in 2007, a 95% rule where you could identify up to 3 properties that were 95% of the value, and then there was 200% rule where it was an unlimited number of properties up to 200% of your net sale. I thought, have those changed, or do they not apply, or am I?
Oh, this is Steve, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Steve, wait a minute. Yeah, no. Those rules still apply.
Okay.
During your 45-day period, you're producing a list. If you name 3 or fewer properties as potentials, it doesn't matter what they're worth. So you can sell for $100,000 and you can name 3 $5 million properties. That's fine. Of course, you have to purchase at least one of them. Now, if you wanted to name more than 3, you could name 4 or more properties, but the total value of your list can be no more than 200% of the value of what you sold. So if I sold $100,000 and I wanted to name 4 $50,000 lots, I could do that. But I could not name 3 $50,000 lots and 1 $75,000 condo, because that would be more than 200% of what I sold. Unless you purchase 95% of everything you identify. and then you can still do it. So if you had to name more than 3 properties, keep it under 200%. But if you had to name more than 3, and if their total value had to be more than 200% of what you sold, if you close on 95%, you could do it. Now, in our example, how many of those 4 properties would you have to purchase?
50, 50, and 95. What was the original price you mentioned?
100,000.
Well, 2.
I have to close on 95% of the value of my land.
I see. So you'd have to purchase all 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So try to keep as fewer properties as possible. And this takes us back to the whole idea that as much as you can get done before your sale closes and during the 45 days, the better off you are. If during the 45 days you were already under contract for 8 or 9 properties and you closed on all of them during the 45-day period, then on day 45, your list is good, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Second question. We're discussing, we're talking with your friend, Dr. Hessler, about ticks and fractional ownership. And I know, as you mentioned, the title has to be held in the same name, but can title be held fractionally as a tenant in common with another individual? Let's say you get, I know you have to identify something. Can you identify a tick, a company? Does it have to be the specific address of the property? Is there any way if you get stuck or any vehicles out there? Well, I guess this is a 2-part question. Can you put it into some form of fractional ownership? And are there any other vehicles out there where you can move it into something like shares of this or part stocks in a REIT or anything else where you're going to get hit by that identification rule that you've got an outlet?
Right, and then part B,
Yeah.
the tenancy. First part is, now, if I got some deals for you. Fractional ownership can be done through all kinds of different vehicles. There are a couple particularly called Delaware Statutory Trusts and Tenant in Common. These are products that are actually set up as a security. They're sold typically by broker-dealers of securities. But because of how the syndication has been set up, they qualify for 1031 treatment because the IRS says that when you purchase a share of a DST or a TIC, you're actually buying a tenant in common interest in the larger piece of property. Now, these can be huge for your retirement portfolio because these products are typically sold. They're large Class A office buildings, self-storage, soloed, high-rise apartment buildings, all kinds of things like that. And you become one very, very small owner. But you get the power of being a part of something much larger. And you can get into it with your 1031. So, and it's totally passive because obviously there's professional management. So that could be a crucial for getting into the fractional ownership. The key to those are that the IRS says it's the same as a tenant in common interest. Now, keep tenant in common in the back of your mind for a minute. Let me deal with some other types of things because real estate isn't always what you think real estate is, because real estate is defined by the individual states, even though 1031 is a federal statute. For instance, in all 50 states, royalty interests and working interests in oil wells, gas wells, and mineral resource projects is considered to be real estate. So if you wanted to, you could sell your duplex in Nashville and buy interest in oil wells in Texas. At the price of oil right now, you may not want to consider it. But if you've got an oil well now, might be time to think about selling that and finding a piece of Nashville to buy. In Florida and many other coastal states, I don't know about Tennessee, there are things that, well, they act like a timeshare or a condo where they are deeded, but you don't actually own the real estate. You own a deeded interest in the building and part of the real estate. So a condominium or a deeded timeshare in Orlando. Or in Florida, my two favorites are what we call the dockminium, where someone has taken a marina, and there may even be a couple Tennessee lakes, I think, if I remember right, where they took a marina and they condominiumized the slips. So when you buy a slip, you're buying real estate. So you can go buy a slip to put a boat in using the 1031. You're buying a hole in the water, and the IRS calls that real estate. My absolute favorite is a building that they've done the exact same with. They've created racks for you to put your boat up onto. Those racks are deeded, and you can buy a rack just like you're buying real estate, and it's eligible for 1031. View rights, deeded timeshares, those are all kinds of strange little products.
How about a houseboat?
Here's the test of how it will work. When you buy a houseboat, well, let's make it something that's a little more that people know a little bit better.
This has a houseboat.
If you buy an RV to travel around, what do you buy to your state every year?
A license.
Exactly. If you have an RV that's on your own tract of land, what do you get from the property appraiser every year?
A bill. A tax bill.
A real estate tax. So if it's simply an RV you're traveling around in, it's not real estate. If it's an RV that sits on a piece of land that you've identified, it's attached to the land, it's now real estate.
You got attached.
So if the boat sunk, he never thinks
I suppose there might be a houseboat on the slip, attach it as an improvement, and now you've got a boat on a slip that's real estate. Why not?
One other quick question. You had mentioned that the IRS adjusts the basis to market value. How do they figure out that contributory portion to the estate that you're actually inheriting? If they're adjusting the basis to market value and there's some debt on it, what's the metric?
That's just typically something that the executor of the estate is going to be responsible for doing. So whoever's the executor for the estate would be responsible for getting a market analysis, whether that's a full appraisal or a trusted CFV from a real.
Okay, no. I'm not asking how they come up with the value. Isn't there an actual? Let's say you inherited a $500,000 property. Okay. So for the future purposes, they're going to say your basis in that is $500,000, but it still contributes toward the total value of the estate upon which you would be taxed if it exceeded a certain amount, whatever you'd be taxed. I mean, what is inheritance tax over how many million?
It floats every it's gone from 0 to 10 billion. And if you believe Trump, it's going to go away. So who knows? To your question, how do they determine what part of that? Again, it's going to deal with the value when you die. So if it's a $500,000 piece of real estate, that valuation goes forward to establish the step up. It goes backwards to establish the value of inheritance. Make sense? Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me to deal with the second half of your other question. And that was on how can we own real estate most effectively? And I said, hang on to the words tenant in common. So any kind of entity, corporate, individual, whatever, can do an exchange, right? If you and someone else owned a piece of real estate, you may have started a partnership and put that property into a partnership. You may have put it into an LLC. If you did that, the LLC or the partnership is the taxpayer. That is who has to do the exchange. But if you and your friend bought a piece of property just as friends, and you decided that each one of you was going to own 50%, you are what the law calls tenants in common. And what you actually own is a piece of real estate that's undefined, but it is worth 50% of a bigger piece of real estate. So, why is that important? Because when you and your friend sell that piece of real estate, you're actually doing an exchange on 50% of it. They're doing an exchange on 50% of it. So you can combine and do one exchange together, or you may not like each other anymore. And you could do a 1031 and go your way. They could do a 1031 on their half and go their way. Or you could do a 1031 and they can take cash. When you own properties as tenants in common, you have the utmost in flexibility because you are actually the taxpayer, but you're the taxpayer for a percentage of the real estate that's owned, whatever it's defined that you own. Did that kind of get your answer?
You got it.
I got a question, Dave.
What's your question?
If me and my friend want to sell our property and both do a 1031 exchange, are we going to pay you twice?
Well, let me qualify that. If it's you, you pay me 3 times.
I got another question.
It is a great question. Because if you're going together, that could be one exchange. But if you're going to go separate, you're actually doing exchanges.
Okay.
That makes sense.
All right. Now, a couple things you said. One you brought up, which you didn't go over, you can take off a significant amount of depreciation. You didn't go over how that worked. So you had this property for 20 years, you're fully depreciated or just about fully depreciated, and now you're going to sell it, so you're going to come up with all that back cash again. Is it pretty much the same way? You just do a 1031 exchange and it goes away?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Because in a 1031 exchange, the accounting mechanism is that your basis simply carries forward into the new property. And that's why you don't have to pay tax. But how the tax is still there. So depreciation is this pretend game that the IRS plays with you, where they say, we're going to pretend on a rental residential property that your building is going to lose 1/27 of its value every year. So after 27 and a half years, if you had a property that you bought for $120,000, and $20,000 of that was the value of the land, right? So the building is worth $100,000. Fast forward 27 and a half years later, you have now received tax benefits every year for a total of $100,000. The IRS is pretending that your building is now worth zero. Now, we know that's not true, because what's going to happen? You're going to sell it. And when you sell it, even if over 27 years it had not appreciated, you're going to sell it for $120,000. And when you do, the IRS says, wow, we've been letting you take depreciation, so the basis you have is zero, and you're selling it for $120,000. So we want to get the tax back on that $100,000. And they tax it at a higher rate than capital gains. It's taxed at 25%. So if you held a property for that long and then sold it, you might not make 1 penny in real estate profit, but you could still have a $25,000 tax bill. So the answer to the 1031 exchange, carry that zero basis forward, and it doesn't matter. If you buy another $120,000 piece of property, your basis is zero, and you owe that. If you sell it, you'll have to pay that tax. But the cool thing is, you can sell that and buy a $200,000 piece of property. And when you do that, not only do you not have to recapture the depreciation, you also get to take that extra $100,000 and start getting the tax benefit of the depreciation on that amount. So depreciation is kind of a good thing, but at the end of the day, it's a bad thing, but there's ways to make it work for you, and the 1031 is a pretty key strategy.
It's better to have you as a friend to do these 1031s than to get married and have to and get the $500,000 write-off.
And it's far better to have to marry you.
I'm good. I'm good.
I love it.
Brandon?
I can't think of anything offhand and stuff. It's been very, very interesting.
Who here did 1031 exchange before? Wow. Wow. We got to start kicking this up. You know what I did, Dave?
I think you got my
I got another question. How fast can I heard you say remodel and refi. How is there, from the time I buy the new property with the gained money, how soon can I refi the property?
Oh, you can refi it instantly. You can even do it the same day.
Well, I just didn't know if I was against the law.
Yeah. Is that you? So the day you take the title, put the money back down, buy something else.
But remember, I bought those 9 property down in East Nashville, and I refied those pretty quick. On Lacey, right down the road. We had some good times back in the day. We were like rocking and rolling.
Dude, it was crazy. That's what this is a boat.
David, he lived on the boat for how many years? 5 years?
10 years.
10 years.
And it was definitely
Half a penny. Living the good life. All right.
It's a good investment.
Doc, what do you got? You got any questions for him?
Well, I would just take the opportunity to give you a little commercial. I had the pleasure of being able to film along with Jim Wood down in Fort Myers. We came up to Tampa and did the filming for the course that's currently on the website. I can tell you right now, I spent most of my time as Dave was teaching that class with my mouth hanging open. When you watch that course on the 1031, as I said, it's on the website, it just blows you away. You realize why the wealthy stay wealthy, because they quite simply don't pay any taxes. It's only the suckers that are paying the taxes, and that would be people like myself. And it's an amazing course. It's stunning what is possible with the 1031. If you are buying investment property and not using the 1031, you really need to watch that course. You really do.
Kind words. Thank you.
Using my head.
Yeah, Dave, he's been talking about you since, well, up until Megan, and now he talks about Megan. So Megan's a lot cuter than you.
Hey, no, Megan. Megan's not just cute, she's cute.
All right, I'll be down to see you in a couple of weeks. We'll go to lunch. All right, anybody else? Nothing else? Dennis, what do you think? What do you think, Dave?
Oh, I think it's all the things we don't know, it's just like Doc said.
He's a machine, isn't he? Yeah. Dave, tell us about how your kids. Dave, he adopted three kids from somewhere.
Well, our youngest is from Haiti. And we've got four boys, all on a boat. And they had their associate's degrees from university when they were 17 and 18. And I am so thankful right now because my second one was dying to go to MIT. And he got an invitation to go visit. They're recruiting him. But you think that I know a little bit about 1031s? I've got psychology on my side too. I told him I'd take him on a visit, but we had to go in December. And it was not just December in Boston, it was the coldest day of that entire winter. And we were halfway through the tour when Max looked at me and goes, Dad, this is a really cool school, but you know what? The University of Florida has a great engineering program.
And it's right around the corner from him.
Right around the corner.
I feel that one. I went to school in Providence, Rhode Island. Let me tell you something. The cold winter wind off the Atlantic Ocean is monstrous. It just cuts right through the bone.
I know. We get those cold winds 5 or 6 times a year. It's 65 or 70. And I don't know what to do with myself. We start fires.
That day is right on St. Pete. All right. We're way over. Come on, Steve, finish this up. All right, go to the front.
Take care, all.
Yeah.
Thank you, baby. You're so interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.